Essentially, you're choosing what your values are. That's why others might see you as being cheap, because their values might be totally different. You don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to start enjoying your life. You can do that much earlier and start living a life that you love and that's true to you. Welcome to Freedom Before FI. Using FIRE and life design techniques, we help you create freedom on your way to FI instead of waiting until you're retired to do the things that light you up. I'm your host Greg, a FIRE movement and life design enthusiast. If you're itching to get freedom now, then let's do this. Hello my friend and welcome back to the show. If you're new here, my name is Greg and I'm here to help you find your version of freedom on your journey to FI. So recently in episode 42, I had a great chat with Shung from Save My Sense. One of the topics we discussed was how to deal with people thinking that you're cheap while you're saving and investing. In short, her view is you really shouldn't be hanging out with people who think negatively of you based on your finances. The true mark of success is time freedom and not all the materialistic things that might make you look successful. And I totally agree. As I mentioned in that conversation, I've been in that position where others think that I'm being cheap, even from my own family. Here in the Philippines, we have a word called kuripot. It's basically our version of being a cheapskate or being tight, as they say back in UK. And sometimes some family members might even call me that. But it's more in like a jokey, fun way and not really in a serious way at all. So along your journey, you might experience things like that. If we took a step back and looked at both sides here, from the frugal person's mindset, they might be on their FI journey, they're saving, investing, cutting costs here and there, with a long-term goal in mind. But externally, to other people, they might be seen as being cheap all the time. And the thing is, I don't actually blame them, mainly because people may not even know the difference between being frugal and being cheap. These days, it's just kind of rolled into one. I mean, if you think about it, no one goes around saying, wow, look at you, you're being well frugal. Well done you. And to be fair, there's a little bit of a grey area. Let's be honest, there are some things in the financial independence movement that might be borderline cheap. I mean, we do love our scrimping. You see, one person's cheap, maybe someone else is frugal, or vice versa. Anyway, let's first start by distinguishing what the difference is between being frugal and being cheap. The way I see it is, someone being frugal is essentially making purchasing decisions based on their values. They're intentional with what they buy. They're actually very choosy with what they spend on. While being cheap, or being stingy as some might call it, is making purchasing decisions purely on cost alone, and it could be to the detriment of quality and in the worst case, their morals and their ethics. Let's take a look at some examples just to paint a picture. Okay, so starting with some frugal examples. When you're being frugal, you're focusing on your values and your long-term goals. So for example, someone might value family experiences and the outdoors, so they'll spend money on an outdoor family trip, instead of spending on like the newest gadgets or the latest fashion brands or labels, which may not be a priority to them at all. Another example is someone might value health and well-being, so they'll spend money on massages, healthy foods, going to the gym and so forth, and won't be spending on expensive fancy dinners all the time, which again might not align with their goals. I mean, they still make some decisions that might be considered cheap to others, but they're doing it to achieve their ultimate goal, which is their freedom. But they won't make decisions that compromise their morals and their values. When you're cheap, on the other hand, this can be a bit subjective, but you're making decisions purely on the price and not really caring much about the wider effects. Alright, so let's take a look at some examples of being cheap. And just a note, some of these might be a little bit severe, but I've used them just to give you an idea. One example is, someone might be in a group setting and they say they don't want food, so they don't chip in or contribute. But when the food arrives, they eat it. Another one is buying stuff on sale, but they don't actually need them. They just buy it because it's on sale. Another one is someone accepting a round of drinks, but not returning the favor. Or showing up at a potluck dinner without any food. Another one is not tipping for awesome service, or not tipping well for awesome service. And then another example is not spending money for a repair or service that's really important for your safety. Now you can see with these examples I just mentioned, cheap is not thinking about the bigger picture. It's all about short-term gains, and sometimes annoying others on the way too. Now frugality, on the other hand, is thinking a lot about the big picture and a lot more long-term. Essentially, you're choosing what your values are. That's why others might see you as being cheap, because their values might be totally different. If you're making informed, values-driven, long-term purchasing decisions, then you're being frugal. If you're doing the opposite, then you're being cheap. So how do I deal with this? Personally, I've actually stopped caring what others think a long time ago. I've bought old second-hand cars, I buy clothes from charity shops, or thrift shops as they say in the US. Initially, I used to get a bit frustrated when people confuse cheap and being frugal. But now I understand that people may just be misinformed, maybe they just don't know you have these goals. You know, we don't go around telling people our long-term goals all the time. And also, since the difference is a little bit grey, I cut them a bit of slack. The little strategy that I've developed is not to buy material things so people think differently of me. And of course, I won't lecture people about their finances either, because I know that won't work. No one likes being lectured. So I try to educate in other ways. So through setting examples like having time freedom, spending on things that mean a lot to me. So for example, traveling and going on adventures, family time, exercising, investing, learning, being healthy. Basically, just being me and doing the things that I love to do. If people are inspired, then great. You know, they might ask questions about how I've done things. But if not, then no worries. You see, the only thing you can really control is yourself and your own thoughts. With that in mind, here's a little framework you can use to make sure you're making a frugal decision and not a being cheap one. So you can ask these questions to yourself before making a purchasing decision, or a non-purchasing decision at that. Alright, so there's 4 questions here. The first one is this purchase or non-purchase aligned with my values? Question 2 is, will this decision impact myself or others negatively? Question 3 is this helping me towards my ultimate goal, i.e. your freedom? The 4th and last question is this illegal or wrong in any way? I think it's self-explanatory what the answers should be to those questions. If you get like 2 or more of those questions wrong, just don't proceed with that decision. Alright, so that's that little framework you can use. You can even use it to look back at some decisions that you've made. Like have a look back in the last, say 6 to 12 months for some big purchasing decisions. Were they aligned with your values? Did they impact yourself or others negatively? Did that purchase help you towards your ultimate goal? Was it illegal or wrong in any way? So anyway, yeah, you can use it as a looking back tool and kind of learn from any mistakes, and you can use it for any future purchasing decisions. So before I head out, I just want to leave you with something one of my old bosses used to say. He said, "They're being penny wise but pound foolish." So this is an issue when someone focuses more on the small amounts to save, rather than the big items, the big expensive items, that have more of an impact. And I've always remembered that phrase for some reason, and it's a goodie along your journey. Thank you for spending your time with us today. If you need more help, you can check out our free guides and services on our website, freedombeforefire.com. If you have a burning question or just want to chat, don't hesitate to drop me an email at greg@freedombeforefire.com. If you found the show useful and want to be notified of future episodes, you can click follow on Spotify, Apple, or the app you're currently using right now. If you think the episode will help a friend or a colleague, feel free to share it with them. And lastly, if you learned just one good thing that will help you in your journey, and you want to help us out, please do leave a 5-star rating on your podcast player app. That would help us out loads. Alright, so that's what I've got for you today. Feel free to shoot me an email with some of your frugal or being cheap examples or stories. Have a great week, and I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, practice gratitude, live life by your design, and do things that make you smile. You got this.